When the Dutch explorer Abel Tasman first arrived on the shores of what will eventually be called Tasmania on the 24th of November 1642, his shore party reported seeing the footprints of a wild beast, having claws like a tiger. The Aboriginal Tasmanians already knew of such a beast, with it being entwined with their traditions. They tell of a story where a pup saved a spirit boy called Palana from being attacked by a giant kangaroo. The boy marked the pup's back with ochre to commemorate his bravery, giving the Tasmanian tiger its stripes. This marsupial was once the apex predator of its range, but was sadly persecuted for the misconception that it killed livestock and became extinct in 1936 when the last individual died in captivity. Did it? There have been thousands of sightings of the tiger since its supposed extinction, but how credible are these encounters? Today, my viewers, we take a look at the Tasmanian tiger, its biology, its extinction and possible resurrection, as well as some of the evidence of their persistent existence. Before we head forward, why not take a minute to like this video and subscribe if you enjoy the content. The Tasmanian tiger, or Thylacinus cynocephalus, was a hypercarnivorous marsupial that once inhabited Australia and New Guinea, with the last surviving population being found on Tasmania, where it inhabited a variety of habitats including forests, woodlands, grasslands and coastal heathlands. Like the old species of thylacine, the tiger seemed to have converged superficially to be more in line with the Canis family, dogs and foxes, leading to its Latin name translating to pouch dog or wolf. One of their distinctive features was their gait, which seemed both stiff and awkward. However, because of this gait, they were not able to run at high speed. However, they were able to perform a bipedal hop reminiscent of a kangaroo. With this, they also possessed the ability to stand on their hind legs and stand upright for a brief period of time. A well-documented feature was their ability to open their jaws up to 80 degrees, but whilst their jaws were muscular, studies have been shown that their jaws were weak, leading them to be unable to kill livestock that they were blamed for. The species extinction on the Australian mainland came when the dingoes entered the Australian ecosystem. The youngest Australian tiger remains were found to be around 3,500 years old, with a possible extinction happening around 3,200 years ago. This closely coincides with the extinction of the Tasmanian devil on the mainland and the earliest records of the dingoes. The dingo was a more efficient hunter as they hunted in packs, as well as their omnivorous diet led to more versatility as opposed to the tiger's hypercarnivorous diet, and so managed to outcompete the tigers for their niche as a mesopredator. Before the arrival of Europeans to Tasmania, it is estimated that the population of the tigers was between 2,000 to 4,000 individuals. However, once the island was settled by the European population, the Tasmanian tiger started to be seen more as a pest by the farmers, as they were frequently blamed for killing livestock. This led to the Tasmanian government installing a bounty scheme between 1888 and 1909, with the government offering £1 per adult or 10 shillings per pup, with an adult being worth an average week's wage at the time, providing an adequate incentive that was hard to resist. The species started to become more rare as the 1920s drew to a close, and the last known wild thylacine was shot by Wilf Batty, a farmer from Morbana, in 1930. Persecution by humans was a major contributing factor for their extinction. However, other pressures were also in play that they could not recover from. Competition with wild dogs brought by the settlers, habitat erosion, a decline in their prey species, disease, and an already low genetic diversity all helped to end the tigers. As the rarity of the tiger increased, this also led to an increased demand for the animals within zoological collections, with approximately 13 of the 165 recorded individuals being kept in non-Australian zoos. Attempts of breeding were largely unsuccessful, with only one successful breeding attempt in Melbourne Zoo in 1899 and the last specimen outside of Australia dying in London Zoo in 1931. The endling thylacine was once thought to have been Benjamin, a male that died of neglect in Hobart Zoo after being left outside of his sleeping quarters. This is now believed to have been a myth started in 1968 by Frank Darby, who based it upon a male at said zoo. However, the endling was found to be a female at the same zoo on the 7th of September 1936. This female was captured by Elias Churchill with an illegal snare trap and sold in the May of that year. The remains were transferred to the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery and were not properly recorded. because of the illegal manner that the animal was caught. This led to her remains being undiscovered until a taxidermist found records dated 1936-1937, which caused a full audit of all thylacine remains at the museum, leading to the identification of the true Enlin in 2022. Ironically, the species was granted full protection by law just a few months prior to their deaths. Besides from the woolly mammoth, the Tasmanian tiger has become one of the most popularised animals to resurrect, which is being increasingly more likely with recent advances into their genome mapping and the art of genetic modification. In 2018, the Tiger Lab, or the Thylacine Integrated Genetic Restoration Research, managed to complete a full genome map of the thylacine from DNA from a joey that had been sorted in a Melbourne museum for over 100 years. Many discoveries were made from this achievement, such as where they fit in the Dasyuromorphia group, who they share with other carnivorous marsupials, such as the Tasmanian devil, quoll, dunnart, and the numbat, who they do look a little bit like a miniature Tassie tiger itself. Along with these advancements, the teams also found that at the end of the tiger's reign, they will experience a low genetic diversity which represented a possible bottleneck in their genetics. Whilst for now the cloning of the tiger is unlikely, as there is no living cell material that can be used, as what was with Dolly the sheep, researchers from the Tiger Lab and the company Colossus Bioscience, who are famous for their research in de-extinction, are instead looking at the genetic cut and paste technique of CRISPR to edit the genetics of a fat-tailed dunnart, the tiger's closest living relative, to create an ecological proxy of what once was. Whilst this can't create 100% pure thylacine, it's the closest we probably could get without delving into science fiction. What if the thylacine didn't become extinct after all, and is still alive today? Since their extinction in 1936, there have been thousands of sightings from all over its former range, and including some international reports from Canada, India, the UK and the US, which we'll gloss over as unless they have a passport, we can assume these sightings were definitely misidentifications or fakes. Sightings in recent years have also captivated the general public, leading to any sightings or media evidence to generate a large amount of publicity. Many of the famous videos are often cited as being of low quality or hard to tell what you are actually looking at. Some cite the distinctive characteristics of the tiger's behaviour and physical attributes, such as the hopping locomotion, thin rat-like tail, or striped back, as being definitive signs that they are real thylacines in the media presented. Those against the existence of the tigers remaining in Australia and Tasmania will often cite the same features as a counter by using features such as the gracile body and thin tail as being just mange foxes, which are common on the mainland. But what about mainstream science? What is their take on the persistent existence of the thylacine? Well, in a 2023 paper authored by Barry Brook et al., it explained how tigers may have survived well into the 1990s and 2000s. By using data from thylacine sightings and taking into account variables such as their occupation, number of witnesses, and the length of time of the sighting, they were assigned a rating to each encounter. For example, a park ranger or scientist would have a higher rating than that of a normal person off the street. An account from a group of witnesses over a longer period of time was more reliable than a single witness and a fleeting glimpse. From this data they concluded that the thylacine likely became extinct between the 1940s and 1970s, with further analysis indicating them possibly surviving into the late 1980s and early 2000s. Tigers are not just being sighted in Australia and Tasmania, as we previously mentioned. One of the godfathers of the cryptozoological community, Bernard Hooverman, first reported of the possible existence of a large dog-like animal on Mount Giluwe in Papua's Southern Highland province in 1986, along with a claim that it could be a thylacine. Many cryptozoologists have reported claims of a creature called the Dobsegna, a dog-like animal with a striped coat, a long thin tail, larger and more powerful jaws of that than a dog, which lives in more elevated habitats. Throughout the years since the initial reports, many investigations have happened which recorded alleged reports by local people, with some going as far as stating they killed individuals because they kept killing the village's chickens. As with many lost species investigations, the local people have shown various images of animals, some native, some not, which included a thylacine, Those from the lowlands never recognised the thylacine, whilst those in the highlands identify the dog segna as a thylacine, albeit with a grey colour instead of a tan, along with further insight into their behaviour, habitat preferences and diet. Those against the tigers surviving into modern age in Papua have often cited the misidentification of the New Guinea singing dog, a species or breed, however scientists wish to classify it these days, of dingo. This explanation has been suggested to explain one sighting in the 1970s, as no stripes were mentioned. In addition to this, there have also been claims that the tigers may not find enough prey in the mountainous regions, with some researchers seeing firsthand that overhunting of animals, with them particularly being macropods like wallabies and pademelons, happening. The counters that have been given in support of their existence on the island is that singing dogs are not striped like many of the reports suggested, as well as them being well known amongst the people of the area. In my mind, if the tigers were to have survived their extinction, the most likely of places they would have survived would have been Papua New Guinea, as this is largely less populated and difficult to explore, as opposed to Australia or Tasmania. It is an interesting take that the species may have in fact survived some 70 years after their alleged extinction, but it would have also made sense as to why they were sighted in Tasmania. However, this doesn't account for those sightings on the mainland, as they are thought to have become extinct 3,200 years ago. We can probably find comfort in that this Australian sightings could have just been foxes with mange, with a drop of hopefulness. But what do you think? Do you think the Tasmanian tiger would have survived into the modern day? Let me hear your theories as to their existence. I would like to thank you, the viewer, for taking the time to watch this video essay, and I hope you would have the time to like, subscribe and leave your feedback in the comment section below.